Hey, Babar here. What are your favorite Spider-Man games? Maybe you like the classics like Spider-Man for the original PlayStation. That game is godly. Are you older? Perhaps then you'd reach for something more your speed, Spider-Man for the Atari, or the Amazing Spider-Man for Amiga, and tell me what being 50 feels like while you're at it. Maybe you'd prefer something more contemporary, Spider-Man Web of Shadows. I know everyone has fond memories of this one. If you're still turning your nose up, then you'd likely be interested in something more controversial, Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. I never got to try this one on the big consoles, but I owned a copy of the under-discussed Nintendo DS version and I thought it was a pretty good time. Whether you're purple, red, drink crystal, big, small, short, or tall, there's a Spider-Man game out there made just for you, even if you don't resonate much with the character or superheroes in their games in general. Twin, by the way. But the goal of this video isn't to map Spider-Man games onto different Myers-Briggs type indicators, although that sounds like fun too. No, today we're gonna talk about the most important Spider-Man game to come out in my lifetime, the one to rule them all and probably one you've never heard of before today. I'm talking about Spider-Man 2, sorta. Welcome back to Babar IRL, friends. I'm your host, Kenta Kobashi. Babar. A young Babar spent many a day playing Spider-Man for the original PlayStation at a childhood buddy's place. If we weren't outside kicking around a football, exploring our flats, or making up imaginary games to play, we were in his room playing bootlegs off of PlayStation 1. I've lived another 20-ish years since then and nary a sweeter time was had. That's not true, but I've had such strong positive memories of this game, Tekken 3 and that other one, because of this time period. One day I'd come home to a gift from the heavens, a Spider-Man 2 CD-ROM. My mother side-eyed me and said, yeah, you like that Spider-Man shit? I'd slam that CD into the computer, wait for the install to complete and sit through the game's intro screens with bated breath anticipating Spider-Man for the PS1 on PEDs. Better graphics, cooler levels, more enemies to fight, more superhero moves. No! Spider-Man 2 Activity Center. Enjoy the game, little nigga.
You're a genius.
Dog, what is this? This isn't Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 looked like this. Was this a joke? The game literally laughs at you when you turn it on.
Uh-oh.
Peter, we're on a first-name basis, you know? You can't do me like this. You gotta explain what's going on here.
Welcome to my turf, Manhattan. My spider senses are going off like crazy and I could use your help to get things sorted out. Scroll through the city and find the danger zones. It's time to do some good.
He's sleepwalking through this dialogue. This was the digital side of my childhood in microcosm, bro. I was constantly getting duped like this growing up. I opened this shit thinking I'd be controlling Spider-Man, web-swinging and beating up Dr. Octopus and his goons, but no, here Peter is addressing me through the computer screen, asking me to help him by clicking around on shit. Bro, I'm supposed to be you. Okay, Spider-Man 2 Activity Center. A side piece to the actual Spider-Man 2 game released in 2004. Its legacy, a sentence on Spider-Man 2's Wikipedia page, no hyperlinks by the way. It's not even mentioned on Wikipedia's comprehensive list of Spider-Man games. This game basically doesn't exist. If you grew up playing it like I did, no you didn't. Just look at this game manual. 2 pages of bore you to sleep text, followed by 3 pages of shit kids won't read. No images? No styling? No pizzazz? I know what we're in for. So what Spider-Man 2 fraudulent activities got going on besides temporarily pissing off my 7-year-old self? Well, you get 7 Spider-Man themed minigames in this package. There are these different sections of Manhattan that you can click on, and each section corresponds to a different minigame that you can play. And it's upon clicking on these minigames that you realize how fucked you truly are, because you could write this start screen off as just a failure in presentation that makes way for a really compelling gameplay experience, other numerous red flags aside. Then you click on this warehouse minigame and Spider-Man's asking you to guide him through a maze of lasers and mercenaries in the hunt for Doc Ock, and you realize, oh, yeah, I'm not gonna have that much fun playing this. Using the mouse, to move Spider-Man around at a snail's pace as he trundles along like he's Solid Snake felt like total blasphemy when I was a kid. What exactly was Spider-Man about this? The only way you'd be cool with this nonsense is if you were too young to know that this wasn't very good, and that describes the exact kind of seedy ROM grift that Spider-Man Activity Center was trying to run here. This was something simple and inexpensive that could be thrown together for the kids, and in that way you can't really hate on this game, much as some folks do, but man, is this one sleepy time. Snoresville, bro. There's nothing more to this minigame than this. Walking around, stopping sometimes, going sometimes. You get stuck on parts of the map's interior design constantly, and you can be sure that when the time comes to start moving, Spidey will spin off in the wrong direction, if he even moves at all. That's the game. And it takes 20 minutes to beat just on account of how slow you're moving. I'd already been introduced to a vibe that I wanted to see maintained with Spider-Man on PS1. I already knew what I wanted from one of these games. Action, excitement, web swinging and button combos, type of shit you'd play all night. Even stealth in that game was fun, much as it was a farce. This, by comparison, had me sleeping early and waking up on time for the school bus, all responsible-like. I'd rather do social studies homework than play this minigame. I've seen cadavers that move faster than Spider-Man does here. You can pick up these tokens to increase your high score, which goes towards unlocking printable pictures and other goodies at the Daily Bugle Print Center. Eventually, I started getting caught by these guards on purpose to feel something, just to see if that would feel more exciting than what was already going on, and no. Peter doesn't even give a fuck once he runs out of continues. He just shrugs his shoulders like, aight.
That didn't work out too well. We'll have to try again.
No one cares. Totally aimless orating devoid of emotion or voice direction. That actually sounds like Tobey Maguire, but he's as lethargic as I assume everyone else involved in the production of this game was. He genuinely comes across like he couldn't be asked.
We'll have to try again.
If he flubbed one of these lines, they would have just left it in the game, because he doesn't sound like he was down for doing a second take. And it gets worse once you actually beat the warehouse level and unlock the mini cutscene between Spider-Man and Doc Ock.
Ready or not, here I come. Gotcha.
I don't think so.
That nigga said, gotcha. What's going on here? Why is this fraud trying to play tag with his nemesis? Isn't Doc Ock on the on-site list? I'm sure you had to bend over backwards back in the day for that E rating, but even still, this is some timid nonsense. And we did all that useless sneaking just to find the doctor on the rooftop, where you'd expect him to be in a Spider-Man game. Are you starting to see how crazy the premise of this minigame is? You're tasked with climbing a building. Nope, not the fun way. Take the stairs, bucko. Oh yeah, get on your hands and knees too. Our reward for doing that grunt work in the warehouse is watching Spider-Man do the cool flippy shit we would have rather been doing in a cutscene before falling flat on his face and asking you to clap for him. Beat the warehouse level to get the most deflating congratulations screen of all time, featuring a near comatose Peter Parker.
All right, we made it. Well done.
And you can move on to something else. The alleged everyman superhero heads down to police headquarters because he likes being a cop in his spare time. He only put on the mask because he failed the NYPD's recruitment exam apparently, and the questions on those are like 2 + 2. Regardless, you've got to help Spidey identify various criminals using this ridiculous supercomputer. You get a cutscene that reveals their face, and you can use the computer to cycle through various features until you have an image that matches the profile you got in the cutscene. Pretty simple stuff, and honestly kind of a decent puzzle that's somewhat neutered by the fact that you can replay the cutscene as many times as you want. In my opinion, it would have been better if you could play each scene twice before having to restart the minigame from scratch, just to add some tension somewhere. Anywhere to Spider-Man 2 Activity Center. You attach faces to all 3 perpetrators of this bank robbery, and the New York PD sends these crooks to jail. All in a day's work for Peter 5-0.
Great, thanks a lot. This description will come in handy.
Spider-Man moving mad federal for absolutely no gain, and he's doing it in plain clothes too. These goons were probably robbing the same bank that gambles with their clients' money on a daily basis. Surprising that this institution even had the fiat to fill up a couple money bags the way they're probably absconding with people's hard-earned dollars in strange and unusual ways. I'm just saying that Peter's energy shouldn't be focused on people who are as broke as he is, but you never see superheroes using their terrifying powers to beat up white-collar criminals, I guess. Perhaps proof that people with powers are no longer working class but part of an elevated cop-adjacent superhero class. But that aside, why didn't Peter just suit up, put a hurting on these guys, and get a proper look at their faces that way? It would take 15 seconds. And by no means am I an expert on the guy, but isn't that what he'd opt to do almost 100% of the time instead of spending a whole day sneaking around hoping to catch him in a fully front-facing pose like they're modeling Sheen clothing? Wait, sorry, I forgot the objective of this game is to do the least fun thing possible every time. Even the stuff that you could explain in a way that sounds fun is contorted to be unfun so that we can keep the same low-level energy. Whole game is a filler episode, just da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da.
I'm behind in my studies and need some help getting caught up. Let's head over to the university lab and take care of my assignments.
Low-level energy, low-vibrational gameplay, LFO gameplay, if you know, you know. We're even about to go to Peter's school so that we can literally catch up on some homework. This whole game feels like catching up on some homework. Spider-Man's mixing chemicals in the university laboratory. He listened to the instructions on the right and dragged the appropriate chemical compounds up from the bottom of the screen and into the beaker in the center of the screen. Don't overcook the product and you'll advance to the next round of gameplay. Preschool baby stuff, but you're on a timer, so I do appreciate at least the facade of urgency, though the significant amount of time that you are provided with renders the timer kind of moot. Advance around and Peter calls you a genius.
You're a genius!
Which actually makes me feel like more of a dumbass. You don't even know what you're making. You're just doing whatever the man with the deep voice tells you to do like a lab rat.
Stir. Heat.
All right!
I could be making bird flu, and I'd never know, and here Peter's ass goes talking about you could win the Nobel Prize. Fuck off, man.
I could win a Nobel Prize for that.
Even when Peter Parker took photos for the Daily Bugle, he'd leverage his powers to gain an unfair advantage over any up-and-coming photojournalist. J. Jonah Jameson would be looking through Peter's still shots like, you took these? But he was always unable to put two and two together because he had dollar signs over his eyes. Now we get to play a game of Catch the Crook, where Peter is tasked with doing a photo op with some bad guys, but we're not even on rails to provide a sensation of interesting movement. We're stationary. Now this minigame actually gets a little intense, but for the same reason that most of Activity Center's minigames do. Most gameplay across Activity Center's hour of playtime is mouse-driven, part of the reason why I appreciate this very cool Spidey-themed cursor, but the mouse sensitivity in this game is super crazy. It's sensitive to the point that little movements will send the cursor flying across the screen, and this game provides you with hundreds of opportunities for you to misclick something or move your mouse in the wrong direction to your detriment. Spider-Man will occasionally just go everywhere except the direction you want him to go during the warehouse minigame. He'll fail to pick up one of these liquids or powders constantly as the timer runs down.
Add red powder. Stir.
And his camera POV will trail off in strange, hard-to-predict arcs as you try to pinpoint where in the hell these bad guys are. The battle against Activity Center's controls is where any and all difficulty here stems from. The controls push you towards a fail state faster and more effectively than any of the game's actual challenges, and that constant, frustrating conflict is all that separates Spider-Man 2 Activity Center from feeling like an interactive webpage or a PowerPoint presentation. It doesn't necessarily make minigames like Catch the Crook very difficult, but it does heighten your anxiety a bit more than you would expect from a game like this. We're playing whack-a-mole with the seedy underbelly of Stan Lee's New York City, and these confused fools are treating the Daily Bugle's crime section like a Vogue photo shoot, posing with bags of money and contraband like it's amateur hour. This is the most fun minigame that Spider-Man 2 Activity Center has to offer. Maybe not the most fun-looking minigame, but the most fun in terms of gameplay, and part of that is due to the sensitive mouse movement. Generally speaking, it's hard to miss one of these guys popping out if you're attentive, but it always feels like you might not land Peter's viewfinder on them in time to get a shot off, and that gives Catch the Crook some much-needed spiciness, in my opinion. The further you get in this minigame, the funnier it gets. Like seriously, most of these guys actually feel like they're trying to get their shit off in front of the camera, and it's incredibly funny. Each time you win a round, you get your photographs published in the Daily Bugle, but I'm sorry. If these crooks are notorious enough to make the city's most wanted list, why isn't Peter suiting up in the blue and red to go put the fear of God in these flaunting ass niggas? He's just taking photographs. Who does that help other than himself? Certainly not me or my enjoyment, dog, although this is a pretty fun minigame, I won't lie. Look, we even get a Doc Ock tease at the end of this minigame, and Pete's just sitting there in a dark hole, staring helplessly. Bro, go kill him. Nah, we gotta make hot chocolate at school, sorry.
Stir.
Are we for real not gonna deal with this terrorist?
Well done. Get that film to the lab for the morning edition.
Okay. Doc Ock staring him in the face and he just doesn't care at all. By the time we actually encounter him in one of these minigames, Peter sapped any and all desire to defeat the evil doctor from my bones. He's just a guy to me now, as he clearly seems to be for Peter. Oh, the doc's terrorizing a cafe?
Doc Ock is causing trouble at the cafe.
Quite frankly, this is the kind of low-stakes shit that any of the unfortunate souls we've just put behind bars could pull off. The doc having a PhD and a special interest in body modification don't make him any different or worth paying more attention to. Let's just do another photo shoot, man. Forget that weirdo. His minigame's dumb anyway, although you actually get to play as Spider-Man here, which is typically something you'd take for granted when playing a Spider-Man game, but here we are though. You're not actually here to kick Doc Ock's ass because we know what happened the last time Spider-Man tried doing that. This time we're here to protect the pedestrians he's harassing, which is fine with me. I'd rather be helping people in need than doing grunt work for the New York Police Department. Except these civilians clearly don't want to be saved and are trying their best to move into the path of the debris Doc Ock is throwing everywhere. While this octopus has a tantrum, Peter's gotta use his webs to trap any falling debris and prevent it from hitting the ground. Fail to do this too many times and you get a game over screen. You have to follow the path of the debris and aim your shot kinda below where you think they're gonna fall, if that makes sense. You won't find much success clicking directly on the falling objects, is what I'm trying to say, and that adds an interesting variable to the otherwise pretty straightforward equation that produced this minigame. We'll encounter Doc Ock again shortly, but for now he seemingly rejoices at your successful attempt to thwart whatever scheme he was trying to get off during this random, pointless tantrum before throwing a magazine stand at you. And Peter's like, good work.
Good job. We saved the citizens.
Sounding like he has a cold or sore throat or something. Doc Ock's presence in these minigames is kinda weird in general. His objectives are always unclear and he'd always prefer to abandon his mission outright rather than take on Spider-Man. The wall crawler minigame sees Doc at the top of this residential, creating the same exact kind of nonsensical chaos as he was the last time at the cafe. Spider-Man's gotta scale this building and stop this nonsense, but if I hadn't played this game growing up, the cynic in me would have expected Peter to elect to take the stairs so as not to cause a ruckus. Thankfully, he's got his head screwed on straighter than that, but only just so, as Peter's anti-octopus strategy involves crawling up the wall of this building as slowly as possible, despite the presentation of this level calling for some serious urgency. There are 100 ways he could get to the top of this structure, especially given his skill set, but they're all too efficient, so he'll settle for taking the path slowly traveled while Doc Ock flirts with him.
You're too slow, Spider-Man. Way too slow.
What even is their dynamic in this game supposed to be, bro? Spider-Man's gotta avoid the birds that are helicoptering around, plus falling debris and random environmental hazards that we can credit to an agitated Doc Ock. What's nutty about this level is the way in which it portrays Stan Lee's New York and its people. By that I mean, a lot of folks in this building are just standing around defiantly, refusing to evacuate during a time of objective crisis, possibly just to spite the bastard who's done this to them. What's more possible is that nobody can leave anyway due to shoddy construction and or inaccessible emergency exits, which makes Spider-Man prioritizing Doc Ock in this situation kinda crazy, but it's funny to think that this woman is looking through the blown-out wall of her third-floor apartment screaming, "Get him, Spider-Man!" Whatever the reason for this visual oddity, it seems apparent that Peter's priority should be pulling these folks out of their homes before their building collapses, instead of trying to scale that building, reaching Doc Ock at the top of it, doing nothing, then letting him run away, but it matters not, I guess. I personally get PTSD every time I encounter a game designed like this because of Teen Titans 1-on-1. Such was the effect that Flash game had on me, and if you want to learn more about it, keep an eye out for my next video. Anyway, scale the building to find Doc Ock reaching into 2 bags of potato chips with both hands. Also, of course, in typical passive fashion from this version of Spider-Man, he's let the Doc escape to another pharmacy, and so it's on to the next round of gameplay.
He jumped to another building. Let's follow him.
That is the most absurd cutscene I've seen so far, and that somehow covers a lot of nonsensical ground despite there only being like 3 cinematics total in the game. Doc running off like he's a kid who's trying not to tell you his devious secret. I appreciate that you get to scale a new building every round. This one's got like a gothic thing going on. There's an open house banner draped across the front of the building too, blowing uselessly in the wind. This is a good detail. It's a fun joke that'll elude Activity Center's target demographic, but one that any parent passersby might appreciate in the moment. The wall crawler minigame is just packed with the kind of interesting, trivial details that Spidey's other minigames are not, especially when it comes to these New Yorkers, who are understandably not happy that this anemic version of Spider-Man can't take things into his own hands and actually deal with that dork Doc Ock.
Ready or not, here I come.
This guy on the right, who presumably has to go through the arduous process of finding another place to live soon, is one step closer than Spider-Man is to dealing with Doc Ock his damn self, if only this bum-ass game would allow him. And his baby mama's in the other room too, telling him, yeah, beat his ass up. Niggas are suspended in the air at work, yo. Doc is doing this at like 7 a.m. I'm crying. These visuals are just too audacious to not be intentional. I'm surely supposed to laugh at the absurdity of this, and I am. So yeah, this level got it.
Catch me, will you?
I was never the biggest fan of Spider-Man's incessant use of one-liners, but dog, I'm really missing that energy now.
Well, we've certainly put a kink in this operation.
Peter Parker's delivering that line like he said something witty, but he hasn't. There's no double meaning, no euphemism, not even a pun or a simile. He's just winking at me inappropriately. Activity Center's final minigame is the most ambitious one of the lot, and it features this pretty cool and cinematic web-slinging visual that you, of course, have basically no control of whatsoever. I remember this one quite strongly from when I was younger because it was the one where I felt most like Spider-Man. You've got to chase down some criminals as they hightail it through the concrete jungle in a getaway vehicle. These crooks, of course, can either turn left or right, and those directions correspond with the colors blue and red, as well as with a higher and lower pitched sound, respectively. This minigame is just a memory puzzle. Memorize the correct directions or colors to advance. A simple affair, elevated by some pretty nice presentation, no doubt aided by Spider-Man's web-slinging powers being some of the coolest in the observable universe. The fact that they're so cool makes you wish you had the freedom to just fly around in an open New York City yourself, and that was the stuff of dreams as a kid, even though Spider-Man on the original PlayStation really did try with the little it could do. Years upon years after first playing Spider-Man 2 Activity Center, I'd go to a friend's house and try out Web of Shadows for the first time, and this game, for being much less memorable and iconic to me than the PS1 Spider-Man, realized my vision of what truly free-flowing web-slinging could and should feel like. The actual Spider-Man 2 game for PS2 was the true innovator in this area though, which is just beautifully ironic, isn't it? I was clicking on buildings wondering if they'd ever make a Spider-Man game where I could just do this myself, and as it turns out, they did make one with Spider-Man 2, just not the version I was playing. You can say this for a couple of Activity Center's minigames, but the web-slinging memory puzzle gets old long before it's over. You're looking at the same 5 screens repeat endlessly, and the camera tracking Spider-Man from behind is a potential seasickness generator, leading to an experience that you, unfortunately, just want to be done with by the time you're halfway through. Doc Ock taunts you on every level, talking about, "I don't think you'll get there in time, Spidey."
You'll never make it in time.
Is he for real? Why is he even chatting Spider-Man right now? How is he communicating with Peter in this moment? And why? It's not like he has anything to do with the petty criminals we're trying to catch, right? Maybe this is just to remind us of his presence. Would be helpful for some kids out there because the Doctor feels marginalized to the edges of this experience, even though some of Activity Center's minigames place him front and center. I think that's because the game prioritizes everything other than actually dealing with the Doc in any meaningful sense. He's not presented as an existential threat so much as a nuisance, a town pest who Spider-Man's gotta clean up after on some, "oh, it's that darn Doc Ock again" type shit.
Doc Ock is causing trouble at the cafe.
And Spidey's not particularly proactive or interested enough in finding a more permanent solution to the octopus problem. In fact, when viewed through Activity Center's lens, Spider-Man is just a guy who puts on a ridiculous costume so that he can minimize the collateral damage caused by New York's greatest foes while presumably waiting for another cooler superhero to swoop in and actually do something. When he does try to do something, it's in a cutscene, as in only this cutscene, and he botches all his spots before shrugging his shoulders and moving on. He might as well drop the Spider-Man moniker and just do all of this as Peter Parker for some extra notoriety and much needed money in his pocket. He doesn't need to be Spider-Man to flip through the NYPD's extensive profiling database, or to crawl around in this dump, or to take pictures of bad guys, or to fail his college courses. Throughout Activity Center's playtime, we're stripping Spider-Man of all its magic and punch in order to emulate all the worst, most federal, most boring parts of Peter Parker's life. And it's kind of an unfortunate realization to come to over the hour it takes to beat this thing. But to be honest, as fun as it is for me to talk about all that stuff, it's not so bad. It's just really dull, maybe sometimes frustrating in the wrong ways, and it certainly doesn't frame the Spider-Man character so well for those who care deeply about that. This game was forgotten by everyone but those who had close memories attached to it, and also this guy who gave the box set a negative review on Amazon, and that's fine. I'm not making this video hoping that Spider-Man 2 Activity Center will be reappraised decades later and acknowledged as the worst Spider-Man game of all time. I think its place in Spider-Man's catalog of games is kind of appropriate as is. A mention on the actual Spider-Man 2's Wikipedia, unacknowledged everywhere else. Just a small project, something for the kids that a team of devs put together in a relatively short time period before moving on to something else, probably something more important and memorable. Today, minigames of this quality would at best be shoehorned into the larger gameplay ambitions of a modern Spider-Man title, not packaged onto a separate CD-ROM and sold to unsuspecting children with inadequate PC specifications. But let's be honest, this probably was an inexpensive product to make and market, hence why it released as a tie-in to a tie-in probably didn't cost very much either, and that's probably how it ended up in my computer. I don't even have particularly negative memories of this game, despite it not being what I wanted to be the first time I played it. I'd spin this CD on the weekends and run it in a gauntlet with games like Midtown Madness 3 and Jumpstart Adventure's 4th grade Sapphire Falls. What a classic. I'd have the computer warmed up by 8 AM when my auntie was playing R&B on the kitchen radio. Activity Center's music is actually really great, but in my memory, this game was soundtracked by Stick With You by the Pussycat Dolls and Hate That I Love You by Rihanna and Neo. This little game contributed positively to that slice of my childhood, and while I'm not particularly drawn to superheroes in my adulthood, Spider-Man still has a serious place in my heart, not because of the films or the comics or the memorabilia, but because of games like Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 Activity Center, formative experiences from a formative time period. So I'm cool with this game going unacknowledged. Maybe it was just meant to be my little thing. And that's pretty special, in a way.